This episode of Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast is brought to you by MG Schlachter, a built environment and architectural consulting firm with an in-house production team. Delivering support services in the retail, hospitality, and residential sectors for leading brands worldwide, MG Schlachter is reinventing, something near and dear to my heart, of course, architectural support services. So look, let's say you're a worldwide fashion retailer and your new business plan calls for opening 450 new stores around the world this year. Or say you're an architecture firm and in order to grow, you need to staff up quickly to produce detailed drawing packages for your new winning project. Or dig this. Let's say you're a national hospitality brand who's putting together a new line of boutique hotels and you've got to produce a massive amount of graphics, such as custom artwork, posters, or slide decks, both in digital and print. MG Schlachter serves architecture and interior design firms, retailers, construction companies, graphic designers, and brand managers. And with the way they're reinventing architectural support services, they offer production and strategic consulting. Their in-house production team understands the importance of accuracy and precision and can demonstrate the utmost care throughout the drawing and delivery process. And on the consulting side, their team consists of architects and international design consultants with many years of experience in design and construction. Suffice it to say that whatever built environment or architectural project you're working on, MG Schlachter can step in and help accelerate your growth. So, if you're looking for a built environment and architectural services firm with an in-house production team to help you reinvent your next project, check out MG Schlachter. Find them on the web at mgschlachter.com. That's mgschlachter.com, mgschlachter.com. Hey Revolutionaries, I'm excited to bring you this week's episode with Lydia Machova, where we're talking language mentoring, and where we give a short review of the recent Nomad Summit that was held in Chiang Mai, Thailand, earlier this year in January. But before we get to the episode, I wanted to stop and take a second and give a shout out to everybody who's been listening lately. I've noticed that the downloads have been growing, and I really appreciate that. And if you appreciate it, and if you're getting something out of the show, just a reminder to, copy a link, share it with a friend, or drop a review in iTunes or Apple Podcasts, whatever they're calling it these days, or Google Podcasts. Really helps visibility of the show. And also, it helps me out because you can leave me some feedback and tell me what you like about the show, or, what you don't like, or if you have any suggestions. But anyways, just wanted to say thanks for everybody that's listening. Remember, you can always find the episodes listed at jimjimsreinventionrevolution.com, there with all the detail and all the show notes. Also, if you want to reach out on Twitter, you can hit me up at Jimium Group. So at JIMIUMGROUP. Okay, so let's get to this week's episode with Lydia.
Welcome to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, the show that explores reinvention in the digital age as it relates to career, creativity, and technology. Stay tuned for interviews with professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives that have reimagined success and are making a pivot. If you'd like to listen to the entire back catalog, visit jimjimsreinventionrevolution.com for instant access. And now, here's your host, Jim.
Hey everybody, this is Jim, and welcome to episode 50 of Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. And I'm talking today with Lydia Machova, and we're talking language mentoring. So Lydia, welcome to the revolution.
Hi Jim, thank you very much for having me.
Hey, well thanks for finally connecting. I know we've been going back and forth the last few weeks trying to find the right time and the right place. And so first of all, before we dig into things, where are you right now? Are you still in Chiang Mai or?
Yes. I'm currently based in Chiang Mai.
Okay.
Going to stay here for about 2 more weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
And then I'm heading back to Europe.
I see. Okay. And just let everybody know out there. So you're in a co-working space in Chiang Mai, and you're in this, little booth here. So that's why you have a little bit of an echo on your voice.
I'm sorry about that. The ceiling is a bit too high, so I hope it doesn't echo too much.
That's okay. But just the challenges that everybody's got to deal with when they're on the road and traveling around.
Yeah, this is the thing. So before that, I work from home, and I have perfect conditions from home.
Right.
But I just don't have the community to hang out with. And it's great for recording podcasts and interviews and videos, but just not good for life in general. So
right.
Unfortunately, we'll have to deal with these issues now.
Right, exactly. But I wanted to see what you've been up to, because before we dig into kind of how we got connected, because you said you were in Pai over the weekend.
Yeah,
Is that
that's
right?
right.
So Pai is a city in Northern Thailand for people listening out there. So what was going on in Pai? Because I've never been there. I'd like to hear a little bit about it.
Oh, it's a wonderful place. It's like one of the must-see places when you are in Chiang Mai. It's
Okay.
about three hours by bus or by motorbike from here, from Chiang Mai.
Okay.
And it's this nice little town in the mountains surrounded by nature. And it has quite an interesting community, let's say a bit more of a hippie community of
Okay.
people.
All right.
People who are interested in meditation, maybe, and but they definitely like their nightlife. So nightlife is much better than in Chiang Mai.
Oh, you think
And
so? Okay.
yeah, oh, definitely, definitely. Like you walk in the street and it's just pumping everywhere. There are discos and places. That was a bit surprising to me, but it was a nice change from Chiang Mai because Chiang Mai is not like that. It's nothing like Bangkok. It's actually pretty calm in here, but yeah, that's actually good for people who want to work seriously on something because there are not too many distractions and they can get work done, right? But Pai is more of a retreat, yeah.
Right, right. So it was just a happenstance. You kind of just connected with folks and you're like, oh, let's go to Pai.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what happened. Like a friend of mine that I just met in one of the co-working places, I spoke to her for like half an hour. She just wrote me a message like, hey, a couple of my friends and I were going to Pai. You want to join? I was like, yeah, sure. And then 8 of us just ended up being there and yeah, checking out the hot springs and the Buddha statue and stuff like that. So
Wow.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, that's fun. Well, I've been back down in Bangkok, and since we met, so we got connected because we both attended this year's Nomad Summit in Chiang Mai, Thailand, which was, I don't know, January 16th or 17th, and you were speaking there, which we'll discuss in a second. But since then, we've both been bouncing around a little bit, and I've been to like the Philippines and different islands in the Philippines, and I'm back here in Bangkok now. So luckily we're on the same time schedule, so we could get connected together here. But in any event, so you were speaking at the Nomad Summit. You were actually speaking there at the Nomad Summit,
Yes,
and you were
that's right.
talking about language mentoring and talking about your story. So first off, before we dig into your story, what did you think of the Nomad Summit? And are you a digital nomad, or were you a digital nomad? And what did you think of the whole scene?
Yeah, I totally loved the conference. I think it was honestly one of the best conferences I've ever attended. And I've been to many. I think it was just so well organized and such a good value for money because the fee is not very high. And like we were in a 5-star hotel having this buffet lunch and the pool party. So I think that was all pretty cool. And the people who got interested in this were just interesting. Like all the people I talked to were really, really interesting. And I enjoyed meeting so many great people. So yeah, it was definitely great. And I was not a digital nomad before I came to Chiang Mai for that very conference. I actually started my nomad lifestyle with that very conference.
Okay.
And now I fell in love with it and now I just want to continue.
I
So
see,
it was
right.
it was probably life-changing for me in a way. We'll see. We'll see later if I like that, if I stay
Right.
in this digital nomad lifestyle. But I think I will. Yeah.
Right, right. Well, my impression was the same. So I actually went to the Digital Nomad Summit, the Nomad Summit in Las Vegas, because it was closer to where I live in the States. And I thought, oh, it's pretty cool. And it just so happens that I've been traveling to Thailand the last couple of years during the winter to get out of the cold at home because I have some friends that live in Bangkok. And I thought, this year the one in Vegas was great, so maybe I'll just go a little bit earlier this year and catch the big one in Chiang Mai. And I'm glad I did, and I got connected to a lot of people. And you're right, the Shangri-La was fun. It's a great value. It was only like a couple $100, the attendance fee, and then we had a great pool party at the Shangri-La there, and that's where we actually got connected, was at the pool party. So you remember?
Exactly. Yeah.
So like I saw you speak on stage. I'm like, wow, this girl is amazing. Like what she's been able to do in her life, coming from a very small country and then really kind of blowing up online, which is, you've got a great story. But anyways,
Oh,
I'm
thank
talking
you.
to you and I had no idea who you were because you were like had sunglasses on. We're at the pool, we're just talking to each other, and and then you finally take your sunglasses off, and I'm like, wait a second, oh yeah, you were one of the speakers, Lydia.
Yeah, the person from the stage.
You're right.
No, but actually, I actually enjoyed it. So what I really enjoyed was the first evening when no one knew that I was a speaker and I
Yeah.
could talk to everyone.
Yeah.
Like without any, oh, you're the speaker, and then people already know something about you.
Right.
So I actually enjoy conversations where people don't know anything about me and we can start from scratch. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's I think that was, the way these conferences are structured, like the Nomad Summit in particular, is that gives you sort of a nice chunk of time just to kind of network with people, right? Talk to people, get to know people, just on a real, just sort of casual way, without the big sort of, business mind, without you turned on in this business mind way, where more industry kind of conferences are more, you're just thinking more business and opportunities and competitiveness and all this other stuff, where this is really a different flavor. I really, really enjoy it because you can just connect on a real, just different way, and it's fun and interesting.
Totally. But also, I think many people did what you did. Basically, they said, oh, there's this cool conference in Thailand. Well, why don't I go to Thailand and then travel around a little bit? And I think many people did that, and they actually stayed for at least 2, 3, 4 weeks in here. So this is one of the special events where you can connect to people, and then you can hang out with them later on in the following weeks.
That's
I
right.
think it can easily lead to deeper connections, which is what I value a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Well, did you go down to Koh Lanta? There was a kind of a post-conference meetup.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, how was that?
That was cool. Oh, that was awesome. It was about 20 of us. It was all very leisure. Like, it was not organized in any way. Everybody booked their accommodation, their tickets, and it's just, if you guys want to hang out together, this is the place we're meeting for a sunset dinner,
Right.
And then we did some scuba diving, and it was really, really nice. So the people who were in Koh Lanta are the people I know best from the conference.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking about going down to that, but then this opportunity came to go to the Philippines, so I had to go there.
Yeah, well, that's what happens with nomads, right? Like, you can't really plan too much ahead with many people because they all have their own things going on, and But it's amazing, like this freedom to just decide, like, oh, shall I go to Koh Lanta or the Philippines? Let me go to the Philippines, right?
Right. It is pretty mind-boggling. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, even though I've been able to travel the last couple of years. Extended travel like about a month or so. But the real digital nomads that are just doing this all the time, it's got to be super fun, but also a challenge of just like making a lot of decisions all the time. Like, what am I doing?
This is something that I'm currently actually struggling with, because I decided to spend originally I thought the last 2 weeks of my trip here traveling around, because this is the only way of traveling I knew before, kind of like going to hostels and meeting people and going all to these interesting places. But I feel kind of paralyzed with all the possibilities I have. It's like, where should I go? Which country, which places? Do I want to go to the beach? Do I want to go to a city? And so it's also, sometimes it's a bit too much. If you have too many options, that's not too good either.
Right, exactly. Yeah, once it opens up, it really opens up, and all of a sudden you're like you could be overwhelmed with like trying to book travel and finding rooms, and should I stay in this place or that city or the beach? Oh my God, insane. I guess first world problems to have, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, all right. So, look, hey, let's dig into this language mentoring thing. So I want people to know that what a great, speaker you are, what a great business you have, and what language mentoring is, and how many languages that you speak. So tell people out there, first of all, what is the business that you have now? And then we'll kind of rewind a little bit, kind of how you got there.
Cool. So my business, called Language Mentoring, is based on me teaching people how they can learn any language by themselves. And this means that I can help people learn languages that I don't even speak myself, because it's about the underlying methodology and kind of the system that you create in order to learn a language by yourself without, like schools and courses and going abroad and spending a lot of money. So that's the basic idea.
Okay, so I heard what you said there, but that sounds like fantasy to me. Okay? I mean, it sounds like, wait a second, I don't have to take a bunch of courses. I don't have to spend a lot of money. I don't have to travel to the country's language I'm trying to learn. What are you talking about? Like, how is this different? Like,
where's the catch?
Right, where's the catch? Exactly. Like, this is confusing to me.
So there's the catch. This is the most beautiful thing about it. So all my teaching is based on very natural methods. I don't teach people any special hacks where you learn a language in 2 weeks. Like, this just doesn't exist. Okay, it is going to take its time. I personally learn a new language every 2 years. So I spend about one year and a half learning a language of my interest, then I usually go to that country and practice it and enjoy it to the full because I connect to the people. I just use that language all days long. I dream in the language. I immerse myself. And then I move on to learn another one. But that year and a half was spent learning consistently, more or less for 1 hour a day. So this is what I teach other people to do as well. And why it sounds like a fantasy is most people are used to learning languages for years and actually never getting anywhere, right?
Exactly. And this has been my exact experience.
Yeah.
Like I took, Spanish in high school for 4 years. I took a little bit afterwards. Actually, thinking about language kind of reminded me my experience with languages. So, when I got out of school, grad school, I started working at General Motors, and they had a lot of plants in Mexico, and they actually offered Spanish classes and German classes too, I think, because they had plants in Germany for their employees for free if you just signed up and went and did the class. So I took some extra Spanish classes, and there were some engineers that spoke Spanish there at the facility where I worked. But I know some Spanish. I could talk a little bit, but I'm certainly not fluent, and it certainly took many, many years to just get to some just basic understanding of how to ask where the bathroom is.
Exactly. And this is the sad thing. So I believe that languages are taught so badly in schools and most language schools, and it's just so ineffective. And I hate the fact that because of those years of learning languages, so many people think, almost everyone thinks, that learning a language is super difficult.
Right.
It takes ages. You never get anywhere anyways, right? It costs you a lot of money. And they come to the conclusion that they are just not talented, right?
Right.
And they don't have the language gene, and everybody else seems to have it, but they don't have that, right? And this is not true at all. Like this, it's because first of all, when you spend time learning those languages, you did not really spend a lot of time really learning. You spent a lot of time going to lessons, and that's a huge difference because the things that are done in the lessons are not very effective. And I don't know why the whole world learns and teaches languages in the same way, but this just doesn't work. If you want to memorize a list of words for a test, this is not how your memory learns vocabulary. You have to apply different techniques. So that's the one thing. It's very ineffective. The second thing, it probably wasn't much fun because the teacher picked all the materials and said, okay, now we're going to talk about this and we're going to go through this tense and stuff like that, right? So that's fun aspect. It wasn't very systematic because it was just twice a week, and then at home you probably did not do much, maybe some homework, but usually just 10 minutes before the lesson, let's be honest.
Right.
And there was just not enough time. So what I teach people is to have fun learning languages by finding their own way how to do it, to use effective methods systematically and spend enough time with the language until they reach fluency. And this is all easily achievable for anyone out there. It's just that you need to know, what works and how to apply it systematically. That's all.
I see. Well, I mean, the way you describe it, it sounds easy, like you have this insight, but how did you figure this out? Because like you said, if the rest of the world is learning languages a certain way that doesn't really seem to get you there quickly or really immerse you in this, how did you figure out, I guess, the right techniques or methodologies for yourself along the way? What happened?
Yeah, so I experimented myself. When I was 19, I only spoke 2 foreign languages, English and German. And this is, I say only, and many people go like, wait, well, that's much more than most people. But actually in Slovakia, this is a normal thing. Okay, everybody that goes through high school needs to have at least 2 foreign languages. So this was normal. And then when I was 19, I started learning Spanish by myself. And I actually signed up for a course because at that time I had thought as well that what you need is a course and a teacher and a book. And it just didn't work out because the teacher was not good. There were too many people in class. It was just once a week. So I decided I'm going to try it by myself. And I started experimenting with different methods. And after half a year, I was able to have a conversation in Spanish, like almost fluently. And I was like, wow, this is crazy, Let me see if I can continue with these techniques with other languages. And so I took up Polish afterwards and achieved fluency in a year. And then French and Esperanto and Russian. So I just continued learning, and I figured out what works and what doesn't. But what helped me even more is I started going to polyglot conferences. A polyglot is a person who speaks many languages. I don't know if you know that word. And I talked to hundreds of different polyglots, and they told me about their techniques. And that's when I started to see the common things, the things we have in common, and to generalize them for other people.
So, that's interesting. Okay, so you found out, you kind of had to figure it out on your own. And I guess, when you're motivated to do it rather than just, well, I'll take a class because I have some spare time or whatever, it's not just a casual endeavor. You're deciding like, I want to learn this, so I'm going to sit down and figure out how to teach myself.
Exactly.
So that's kind of like I guess maybe just one hack, even though I know you say you don't teach hacks, but maybe that's one way to think differently about how to learn something in general is like, I'm going to figure out how to learn this.
Yeah.
Just putting your mind to it, right?
Exactly. And this is actually, so when I met this community of polyglots, I realized that this is what all of us have done. Like all of us have figured it out by ourselves. And that's actually all it takes. Like if you really apply yourself to learning a skill, you will find out a way to do it. Mm-hmm. But the problem with most people is people are not as excited about languages as polyglots are, right?
Right.
So what I wanted to bring to the world as my help, as my product, is this shortcut to the know-how that polyglots have without the need to figure it out all by yourself.
I see. It reminds me a lot of teaching music. So I played music. I'm a musician, and I've had some students over the years, and that's how I perceive teaching or learning about music is like, especially improvisation, for example, where it's like, you can teach someone scales and harmony and all this kind of stuff, but it's really about teaching them about how to teach themselves, going forward. Yeah. Really, it's like, here's some techniques of how to learn a phrase, but I don't know which phrases are going to turn you on or that you're going to like, or what style you want to develop. That's up to you. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. This is very similar. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So it's like all you can tell them is sort of like, this is the technique of how to train yourself, and then you got to go off and train yourself.
And I totally believe in the power of learning and not teaching. Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, learning something is when you take the responsibility and the activity into your own hands and you try to figure it out, right?
Right.
With the help of someone who tells you like, oh, look, these two, let's say, I don't know, these two chords work well together or something. Mm-hmm. So they can give you some insights, and so you don't have to reinvent the wheel from the beginning.
Right.
But it's so important that the person experiments with it. As you said, it's just the same thing with music or with languages. Right. So this is exactly how I do it. I present a range of possible methods to people, and I tell them just pick what you like. Because there are methods where you write stuff in let's say vocabulary in a notebook, and then you rewrite it regularly. And for some people, this is like, oh, yes, I want to write with my hand. That's cool. I don't do that anymore. And for some people, it's like, nah, that's too much work. Can you show me something with apps? Right? So
I see. Okay.
It's very important that everybody finds their own methods and kind of creates their own system that will be fun for them. And I've seen it with so many people. So now I have the experience of working with actually thousands of people by now. And I see that when they find that one method, suddenly language learning becomes fun for them. And this is a wonderful thing because suddenly they see that, oh, maybe I am talented to learn a language. Maybe I can also achieve it. And once you start applying one method that you like in practice a lot, like every day for half an hour, 1 hour, the results will come necessarily. There's no way around it.
Right. Well, fascinating. That's awesome. So, all right, so you figure this out about yourself and you're like, hey, I think I have this insight, or you figured out that it's not as hard as I thought it was going to be, or whatever. You figured out how to train yourself. So you start learning these languages, and you got into doing interpreting as your job, right? So tell me about this early part of your work now, because you're like, hey, I got into languages. Did you end up going to language school or studying like that at all? Like for college, or you just realized, hey, I'm good at languages. I'm just going to start interpreting.
No, I couldn't do it. I studied interpreting at a university in
Bratislava.
You did?
Okay.
Yeah, I did. So I wanted to do it really professionally. So I spent 5 years, to do my master's, and I actually continued doing my PhD in interpreting research.
Oh, so really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I really applied many years of my life to interpreting, and ever since I was 16, I knew I wanted to be an interpreter, and I worked hard on achieving that goal. Mm-hmm. So I studied that and started applying it in practice on the Slovak market. But as you hinted at the beginning, later on I realized, well, this is all cool. I've achieved the level I wanted in interpreting. It's time to move on to something else, something that gives me more freedom.
I see. Okay. Yeah, because you weren't always a business person. You weren't always doing things, which we'll talk about kind of in the online world here in a second. You were figuring out how to learn languages. You started as an interpreter, and so you were doing that, and you were doing that at a very high level. You have this super education behind you. But what was going through your mind, I guess, at that time is, hey, I'm an interpreter, whatever, but there's more to life, or I don't feel like I'm maybe stuck here, or I want to use my time in a different way. What were you thinking about why you wanted to change?
Well, there were two main reasons behind my career change. The first one was that I felt I have more to offer to the world than just repeating other people's ideas, because that's what interpreting really is, right? And I don't want to diminish it. I think it's a wonderful profession, and it's really important because without interpreters, many people could not communicate with large audiences of people who speak other languages. But at the end of the day, you don't create any content of your own. You repeat someone else's ideas, and some of those ideas are amazing, some of them are not so amazing, but this is what you are paid to do, right? And so I felt like I wanted to offer some content of my own, because with these languages, for example, I realized that I seem to know something more than other people about languages, and I just needed a place, kind of a platform to give that to the world, to share it, my message.
I see.
So that was the first thing, and the second was kind of about my expectations from life and how I want to live my life. I realized that as an interpreter, I'm a freelancer, and even though I can decide which conferences I interpret and which not, it's not as free really, because if you don't work, you're not paid, right? So you are exchanging your time for money, and if you want more money, you just need to work more hours. And I realized that I want to do something that enables me to live a freer life, and like if I want to take a break for several months, I want to be able to do that whilst I know that my business is working in the background.
Right. Okay. And so when you have this thought, like, how did you start trying to figure out, a business or a product offering, or how do you go about trying to figure that out? Like, putting the right equation together for yourself in terms of lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, as you said, I was not an entrepreneur in my mind at all. I did not have any entrepreneur friends and no one in my family. So I felt kind of lost at the beginning. But I decided, I'm good at learning, not just languages in general. I'm good at learning stuff that I'm interested in. So I started to just watch every possible webinar that I found, read books, read blogs. And I started attending a lot of events where entrepreneurs met. And I just started asking people everything. And soon I created a very active networking system where I reached out to these people. I said, could we please go for a coffee? Let me see if I can help you with languages in any way, like in return. Could you please just listen to what I'm going through and maybe tell me, what you think about it, or if it's a good idea. And these entrepreneurs that I started meeting were kind of pushing me in the right directions.
I see.
So, for example, one of the most important things, one of the entrepreneurs asked me a question. Okay, so you have some know-how to teach people how to learn languages. Now, do you want to present it in a published book, in an ebook, or a video course? And he basically showed me the difference. He said exactly the same know-how can be put into a book, and you will sell it for 10 euros, or an ebook, you will sell it for 30, or a video course, and you can sell it for 300. Right. And so this was very important for me at the beginning, because then I realized, okay, so actually it makes more sense to aim for a digital product such as a video course, which has many hours of content, a lot of additional material, and then the same content can be sold for a larger profit, obviously. So these little tips were kind of pushed me towards finding my own entrepreneurial way.
I see. Well, I really like the idea of you trying to have an exchange or trying to provide value, when you're talking to these other entrepreneurs and say, like, look, I have these skills. I know that you have skills I can learn from, but I'm sure I can offer, something that you can learn from. And, and you guys get together and have a great, exchange and conversation. And that certainly makes people more open, I think, to sharing with you as well. So
yeah, absolutely. And I totally love this way of exchanging value for value without putting a price tag on it. Because if you find a person who is really interested in what you have to offer, they will be happy to help you way above the range of help that you agreed on at the beginning. So, for example, with my business mentor that I've been meeting now for 3 years, he's helped me so much in my business. And he, at the time when we met, he was actively looking for someone to help him improve his English because he wanted to enter the American market. And he was at a lower intermediate level. He could never do it if he continued in like going to language schools and stuff like that. So we started meeting regularly on a weekly basis, and we would discuss my business ideas in English. And I was also helping him create a system which would work for him. And it was just an incredible exchange, which gave a lot of value to both of us.
Right. Well, yeah, that's fascinating. And like more, you got so much more value than you could have probably paid for, exactly. Honestly, right? You know, or you wouldn't have been able to afford it probably at this point, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. Well, that's really cool. And it's just great to kind of, you know, figure that out for yourself. So, all right, so you get turned on and you're like, okay, well, maybe I can learn to be an entrepreneur and, you know, put some product ideas together, et cetera. And you're finding the right people. So, but you're doing this locally at this point, right? Like in Slovakia, that's where you're from originally, right?
Yes, that's right.
So maybe speak about how you look at this local market, because I think on the surface people would think, Slovakia, how much business is going on there? Like, well, you know, how big of a market is it? You know, if you're thinking like a real business-minded person, you know, you're thinking like, let's go to the big market. That's the United States, you know, where all the commerce is or whatever, or Europe, you know, larger Europe, whatever.
Exactly.
Why did you stay in Slovakia, you know?
Yeah, well, this is the type of advice I receive from many, as you said, big-time entrepreneurs who are thinking big from the very beginning.
Right.
But for me, it was important, first of all, to kind of help my people, you know, the people I grew up with. And there's just nothing like this in Slovakia. So I honestly wanted to help people, like my friends who are asking me for advice, how to learn languages, to just send them to my website. It's like, look, it's all there, right?
Right.
That was first thing. And second, I realized that, okay, Slovakia has 5 million people. That is really not a big market. I mean, if you look at how many people are learning a language, how many people are willing to spend money on that, etc.,
right.
it's not that big. But actually, I think what helped me is that I could easily become, let's call it a big fish in a small pond. And I would say this was the number one reason behind my great success in Slovakia. Basically, from the very first month, I was profitable. I started earning money from the very first month. I started my website, my business, because people got interested in this. Like, oh, look, she's the girl next door, right? She's from a small town just like me, and she speaks all these languages, and she seems to like provide some really useful information. So there was an instant trust, and also I could easily describe the problems that they were going through because I know exactly what they went through in their school system, like what type of teachers they had, what books they used to learn the past simple tense and stuff like that. So this was all easier for me to work with people that I know well. And also, I got the attention of media very easily because, again, it's a small country and I am this girl from Slovakia, so they were happy to write an article about me, and that helped me a lot to kind of spread the word.
I see. So yeah, that's really. I think it's useful to kind of really be niched down when you start. You know, like. You're really in your local market. You're serving your local people. You're one of fewer people in the world that have that insight because you're from that location, right? So Exactly. It's like, you know, there's really less competition, maybe less upside initially, but certainly less competition, and and you can stand out more easily. So yeah, that's cool. So you start there. You get your business going in Slovakia. What happens next in terms of your thought process of, can I grow this larger, or can I speak to people that don't have a similar background to you, and will they be open to buying something or getting value from you? Like, what were you thinking at this time?
I knew from the very beginning that I am going to do that, and it's going to be my next step. So ever since I started my Slovak website, I already had my English website with English content, which is very, very basic description of who I am and what I offer. and opt-in to get email addresses of people who are interested in that. And I did not do really anything with the website. It was kind of just like my business card that I gave to people who do not speak Slovak and who got interested in me wherever we met. And then I was just collecting email addresses because I knew that later on I am going to offer a product. But it took me 2 years, so I concentrated on the Slovak market first.
Right.
And then I actually last year in June I offered my first product in English, and I already had a database of people who were interested in this, so it was a lot easier to start in the market in this way.
Right. Now, at this time, I forgot to ask you, when you first started out, you were just doing local meetups and local classes? Like, you didn't have any materials yet, or did you, in terms of like starting to develop products, right?
No. I knew that I want to create a digital product later on, but first I really wanted to test the ideas on real people, let's call it, on people like with real feedback and real-time feedback. So my first product was a live seminar, which was basically the same content as I offer in my main courses right now. But at that time, it was a lot shorter, and I didn't really know what people are most interested in and what they need most help with. So in these first seminars, I was watching for any reactions very closely. I always ask people to fill in a feedback form, and I talk to them in the brace, like, was that clear? Do you think you can apply this in practice? And that gave me incredible insight into what people really need. So I was building my product basically from one seminar to another. I never made the same seminar twice. It was always improved in some ways. Mm-hmm. And it got longer and longer because I realized that people need more information to work with it.
Right.
And so my digital product actually was the video recording of the 10th seminar that I did with real people.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to skip over that step because I think it's so important. It's a way to, validate, what your end product might eventually be, but get that market feedback, see if it's really working, see what kind of value that you are providing.
Yeah.
Without a lot of investment up front, rather than, thinking like, well, I'll just start producing a product and throw it online and see what happens,
I think this is the problem of many companies. I know that everybody's today interested in getting all these hacks and do everything super fast and build a business in 2 weeks and be super profitable. But then we also know that I don't know how many businesses, like it's a crazy number, like 96% businesses just fail in the first 5 years. I don't know if I'm precise with this statistic, but it's just a huge number. And I believe it's because of that. If you are not willing to put a lot of effort into this and to make sure that quality is as high as you can possibly make, then don't expect people to be excited about your product and to want to buy it if you spend 1 week creating it.
Right.
So I always knew that I want this content to be really good, and I need to learn how to do that well. And that took me half a year to figure it out, from the first seminar to creating my first digital product. But now I know it's good, and I'm not afraid to put my name on it and say, this is the know-how you need to learn any language.
Right. So, yeah, amazing. So now you've it sounds like you've, maybe over the last year and a half, you've transitioned more so to doing business online. Is that correct? And in, having this English website, which is speaking to this much larger market now. So
yes,
is that true, or tell me where you're at?
Yeah. It's just online, and that was the goal from the very beginning.
Okay.
I just knew there will be a transition period where I was living in Slovakia, I was working in Bratislava, doing these seminars. I did a tour of in 10 Slovak cities to kind of make people know my name by doing this like evening lectures where I offered a lot of content for like 3 or 5 euros. And the goal was to just move online, and this is what I do now. I don't want to do any more live seminars. I get a lot of offers from companies or conferences that they want to call me for a 1-day seminar and teach them. But I'm not willing to do that because it's an incredible amount of energy that you need to put into this to motivate people to learn and give them all the know-how in 1 day. And that's why I do it digitally, because I only had to do it once, and I can now send people to that website and save my time saying this over and over again.
Right. I see. And well, how does so I think it's amazing, first of all. I mean, it's like you kind of had this plan and then it's like it's transitioned and now you're basically location independent. You can be, and you're starting to maybe, become this super digital nomad now. It sounds like at least you've dove right into it, which is cool. But going forward, do you think you'll do kind of more products and kind of just keep driving what you're doing? Or will you be doing more speaking at conferences, for example, even though you're not focusing on like actual doing training, et cetera? How do you integrate this potential speaking part into what you're doing now? Because I've seen notes on your website and out there that you've done several TED Talks, that you're very good at speaking. I thought your presentation was great.
Thank you.
Is that going to be a component of what you do going forward, or how are you thinking about it?
This is a good question, and I don't really have an answer for that because I always base my decisions on. I don't plan too much ahead. I base my decisions on what I want to do and what I enjoy doing still.
I see. Okay.
Because I've seen that, for example, at the beginning when I was transitioning from interpreter to an expert, I loved speaking, and I offered to speak for free to any audience who was interested in listening, and I was excited about that. I mean, when I was doing my PhD, every year I made a special lecture for the students for free, kind of told them the know-how that is now part of the language project.
Okay.
Because I loved sharing this, and I love to see people enjoying this and applying it in practice. But then I realized that I grew tired of that a little bit. I probably burnt out as a speaker for some time. So that's when I said, okay, no more public talks right now. I want to concentrate on the digital part. But then again comes a period where I say, okay, I actually miss that interaction with people again. So I play along depending on how I feel and what I want to do, because it's very important for me to do something that I enjoy. Right now, I have a team of people, so I'm trying to think of ways how we can create and grow this business together as a team. So yeah, if I feel like it, I'll do more public speaking. Right now, I don't have that need. I do have 3 or 4 conferences scheduled for this year, but it's not as massive. It's not too much. So
Right.
I'm trying to find a balance in there.
For sure. Well, you know what? I think it's a great attitude, actually, or a great, self-awareness of like, hey, I don't have to do all of these things, or people I think get locked into these things where it's like, well, I have to do so much of this and so much of that, and because they see their business need, they think they need to do all of these things for their business. But it's cool that you can kind of pick and choose and say like, I'm tired of that right now, I'm going to concentrate on this stuff, or build.
I think it's important because I want to be able to do this business long term. And if I don't enjoy it, it's just like languages. If you don't enjoy the process, it's not working well for you, right?
Right.
It's not helping you get anywhere. So My goal is always to check on how much do I enjoy this, and do I really want to do this? And if not, how can I change it to something that I enjoy doing?
Exactly. Well, speaking about things that you enjoy doing, we've got a few minutes left, but there's always a few questions I like to ask people when they come on the podcast. And one is about the digital component. So you're moving into this digital world, focusing on online offerings, et cetera, and it's very tech oriented, which is, different maybe from just learning your craft, your skill of interpreting and learning languages, et cetera, right? How are you thinking about the technology component, and how have you been able to, grasp that and teach yourself about it? And is there anything out there that's like really gives you pause, or is really a challenge, or what do you think about the technology part now, because you're really in it?
Yeah. Well, when I was starting, I had no idea about anything. I didn't know how to create a website. It's like, what is WordPress? I have no clue. What are funnels? What is email marketing? How do I do a webinar? Nothing like that. But I learned it step by step. And I think today with Google, if you speak English, you can learn anything. Like there is so much material out there. If you're really interested, so many forums and video tutorials. With just YouTube, I think you can learn anything really. And if you add a few paid courses, maybe on Udemy or Teachable or Skillshare, you can really learn any skill you want. But my idea was always to look for people who are more interested in this and who find it more fun than I do. So my goal was always to understand how these things work, but not to worry about the details too much. And from the very beginning, I had assistants, people who helped me with certain aspects of the business. So, for example, I never really created my website. I'm not very good at web design. I understood it very early on. My design is like when I draw something, it's just not good. So
Right.
I found someone. It was basically my first assistants were my students at the university. That I created my first product for them. I helped them learn for 2 months. And some of them get really interested in that, and I said, hey guys, if you'd like to help me with my business in some things, I could help you, keep helping you with your languages, and later on you could learn new interesting stuff, such as managing my Facebook page and stuff, stuff like that. So a few people got interested, and they're actually the core people in my team until today.
I see.
So I always look for people who were interested and who wanted to learn that very skill. So one guy wanted to really learn web design, and he's my web designer. Mm-hmm. And someone wanted to learn the social media. So I let them learn that. I bought some courses for them. I encouraged them learning that skill by themselves, and they were practicing with my website.
I see. Well, that's a nice way to approach it. I mean, you need to know a certain amount, right? You can't be a super subject matter expert in every aspect.
Exactly.
Right?
It's
so
impossible.
you kind of have to figure that out for yourself, because you got to have to be the CEO of your own business there. Well, interesting. Well, in listening to you talk about learning, I think it's really it's just motivating for me, because you're so enthusiastic about learning, which I think is awesome. Like, man, you can learn anything. Just go to Google, whatever. But it really, I guess, sets up my next question. Is how do you keep your mind open to learning when all these new things are happening and all these new opportunities are popping up, especially in the online world, where you can be connected and really, provide value to tons of people, but you have to learn about stuff that you just wouldn't have imagined maybe just a few years ago that you'd ever be interested in. It's really about like kind of staying open and taking on this challenge. How do you think about going to do that?
I think what helped me open my mind, because I was not very open-minded as a child. I mean, when you grow up in Slovakia, it's not something you are automatically led to be.
Right.
I think what helped me most was traveling and meeting a lot of people and just listening to them, not business related, but just any life experience that they had, and open my mind to the idea that, there are other interesting ways of leading a life, not just what I have known in Slovakia so far.
Right.
And then with the business, I think, for example, the most open-minded thing, or the most important one, was that there is a thing called expert business or info business. This is what I do. Mm-hmm. And it actually is one of the, I believe, one of the best businesses out there, because you really sell information. And if you have that information because you've spent several years working with a topic that you're passionate with, such as me and languages, you don't need any cost at the beginning. You don't need to buy any material. You don't need to store it. You don't need to ship it. You create digital products which you can sell to thousands of people and just replicate it very easily. And once I understood this idea, that's when it all started. It's like, okay, how can I make this work? But first I needed to understand that this is even possible. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs, especially more experienced entrepreneurs, who don't believe that this is even possible. You tell them about info business and expert business, and they go like, no, that can't work. Like, if you need a big business, you need a team of 50 people. You need to pay them all the salaries, and this is just impossible. A solopreneur, cannot earn decent money by selling information. But if you open up to that idea and you listen to stories of other people who do that successfully, whether it's with fitness or let's say nurture, or traveling tips or something like that,
right,
then you can start finding ways how to do it. But first of all, of course, you need to be open-minded to the possibility of that.
Right. I really think that's the key, and definitely travel, as for me as well, has really been able to help me open my mind, be open to different experiences, be open to the notion, like you said, of like, are people really doing this? Does this really work? Until you meet someone that's closer to that, or until you discover and it could be just a random interaction, like, what are you guys talking about over there? And you hear something about, a new business idea, and you're like, whoa, does that really exist? Does that really happen? You really kind of realize, for me, this is what happens. I realize, wow, like how clueless I was, or how maybe judgmental or closed-minded or linear thinking I was, and,
Exactly. And I think the easiest way to open your mind is actually to listen, for example, to podcasts such as yours. You interview different people who have different experience and just listen to that and see like, that's interesting. I never thought of that. Maybe I could apply that. Or meeting people in life. For example, for me, a very inspirational meeting was with a traveler from the Netherlands who had a business where he worked for free for two weeks for any company that would provide him with a place to sleep and food to eat. That's all he wanted.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And he got 100 offers on the first day of making a nice video where he offered this. Basically, just said, "I'm going to work for you for free in marketing." And then I met him, and he'd been traveling around the world for 2 years. At that time, I was like, wow, this is just incredible. How cool is that? And could I do something like that? So he actually inspired me a lot. He inspired me a lot in just opening my mind.
Yes. Well, what a great example, and again, and thanks for mentioning, about listening to podcasts, because this is exactly why I'm doing the podcast, to kind of, just get people to open their minds a little bit, think about, how the internet and how, the coming blockchain and the, augmented reality and artificial intelligence, all these technology trends that are really reshaping society and the pillars of finance and all this kind of stuff, that you really have to have your mind open to kind of be able to navigate or really benefit from this stuff. And that's just an incredible example of, man, you couldn't do something like this years ago without the internet, without the way we're connected with social media, without having like a YouTube video and putting it out there. It's like, it's really incredible stuff when you think about it.
It's been made very easy. And the thing is, if people don't react to it now, they will not be able to catch up in 10 years, because where will we be in 10 years, right? I mean, with the technology, it's mind-blowing. So I think we really should catch up with anything that's out there now, so that we are able to survive.
Yeah, for sure. That's the thing. Yeah, you got to survive. Well, wow. Okay. So, all right, this brings me to my last question. So I have one more question for you. And that is, through all of this experience, and you've had just amazing kind of, reinvention after reinvention over the last few years, now that you're this super online language mentor entrepreneur, incredible. Can you share with everybody a reinvention revelation that something that you wouldn't have predicted about, about the business that you're in, or what you were able to learn, or how you were able to connect with people?
Well, yeah, it's something that I've mentioned already. For me, that revelation was really that there is a thing called expert business. Like, just this possibility of sharing your know-how using digital products such as ebooks, video courses, videos, using social media. Just this channel, having this channel out there and using it, that was a true revelation for me. And also realizing that so I did not see myself as an expert at the very beginning. And I know that when people hear that I speak a lot of languages, they always think, well, this is kind of obvious, what you should be an expert in.
Right.
But I did not feel like that at all. And I think this applies to every expert out there, because you compare yourself to the people who are already out there, who are earning tons of money and have hundreds of thousands of fans, and you have no fan. You are starting with zero. And you think, oh, this is actually too late. I should have started 10 years ago. But it's never too late, and no one will ever pat you on the shoulder and tell you that you're an expert now. You need to realize that your know-how is better than most of the people that will need your help, and you can help them take the first step. And you need to, of course, learn on the way so that you become a better expert in your area, and that's how you can create an expert business. So just this realization that I can become an expert if I start seeing myself as one. That was also very crucial.
I see. Yeah, well, a lot of great advice there, and I totally agree with you that people just don't understand. You're head and shoulders above anyone who doesn't understand how to learn a language and hasn't learned a second language. Your expertise exactly. is obvious, but you're probably, because of the way you think, and you're trying to be like, but I want to be superior, I want to be the best. You're thinking, well, relative to that, maybe I may or may not be there, but really, there's so much opportunity, and you really are an expert in this niche. So, really cool stuff. Anyways, Lydia, it's been great having you on the show. If people are interested in learning more about you or continuing to connect with you, where would you send them? How can people get in touch with you?
Feel free to check out my website, languagementoring.com. And also we're on social media, so on Facebook, if you type in language mentoring, or on Instagram or on YouTube, you will get content in that form, whatever social media you prefer. And I would be happy to stay in touch. So just feel free to write me an email. There is a contact form at the languagementoring.com website. So I'll be happy to hear from anybody who listened to this and got something valuable out of it.
Sounds good. And you know what? Anybody listening out there, definitely go to her website and check it out. So languagementoring.com, right? And you can see her. She's got videos posted of her speaking all the languages that she was talking about. So I think you speak 8 different languages right now. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's 9 languages that I've spent time learning, and I actively keep 7 of them fluently. And with Swahili, I'm getting there. I'm almost there.
Well, I watched all your. I'm a nerd about this, I guess. I watched all your videos because I'm like.
Okay.
Because it's like, I want to see her speak all these languages. This is interesting. This is cool. And you're so totally fluent. You're having like conversations with people. And I did watch the Swahili one, and it says, 6 months, I'm still learning. But I was just like, okay, I can tell she's still learning, but oh my goodness, like she knows Swahili. It was like wild, It's like, certainly many more languages than I know, but it's kind of made me think like, man, I got to get back into trying to learn languages again. Anyways, I just wanted to share that with people because it's really a really great example of your stuff. So that's it. Or anyways, great to have you on, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Well, thank you for the interview. It was a pleasure.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for listening to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. If you want to hear more, join our mailing list at jimjimsreinventionrevolution.com. See you next time, and remember, the revolution has just begun. So dig in, embrace the process of reinvention, and start realizing the success you've always dreamed of. Hey revolutionaries, if you enjoyed today's episode and today's guest, let them know by commenting on their Facebook page, finding their Twitter handle or Instagram feed, and letting them know you heard them on Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, and tell them what you got out of the episode, what you really liked, or how they inspired you. I know they would get a kick out of it, and will help others find the same value that you found.